And the scene is set in Ventru Tower, the shining brilliance of the very large size skyscraper kind of towering over the entire city with its lights shining like a beacon of high class. Inside on the top floor, where the penthouse and uh, businesses are business rooms are held, Alexander Crown waits in a boardroom, a long wooden table in its center. The chairs are leather, and at the head sits the primogen of Clan Ventru, Alexander Crown, waiting for two guests to arrive. And there we begin our scene.
Right, first things first, let's see if Mortimer is going to enter the normal way or if he is going to enter the interesting way. Are they showing up? Oh, there they are. Oh, thank goodness, no botches. So he's fine. In this case, I would say that he and Megan meet in the lobby and then share an elevator ride up to the floor with the boardroom that they would have gotten instructions from via text message.
As Megan makes her entrance and finds Mortimer, you wouldn't notice anything changed about her appearance, although she's normally a little bit more neatly dressed than she is. She's kind of in a very casual-looking tunic, leggings, and a pair of boots. Over her arm, she has a kind of one of those newer backpacks with just the one strap. It actually belongs to her ghoul, not her, but for some reason she's carrying it. And she has her phone in her hand, and then she's kind of texting. She sees Mortimer, and she nods to him, and they take the elevator up to meet with Mr. Crown.
Mm-hmm. Mortimer himself is not in a suit, since unfortunately he does not own one yet, but he's in his best shirt with coat, the best quality that he was able to afford under his salary. It has aged decently since he first got it so many years ago, but there's a drastic difference between the two who take the elevator ride up to meet Mr. Crown's attire, as Mortimer will smile and say, "Good evening, Miss Maitland. It's a pleasure to see you again."
Megan nods, and although she normally is rather twitchy, especially when she's in new places, she seems kind of calm, which is unusual for her. And she asks Morty, I hope everything's been okay. I haven't really heard from people for the last few days.
Well, I haven't heard anything out of the ordinary on the Harpy Network myself, and from what I can tell, all of the Roses seem to be doing fine, although Mr. Crowley has been reclusive as of late. Have you heard about our newest addition to the Clan of the Rose?
Megan, as he's talking, rather than looking away, she's looking right at him and listening very intently to what he has to say, and she just shakes her head.
No? Oh, he's an interesting fellow. A poor man was in World War I and ended up falling into torpor when he got hit by a shell. He just woke up, I believe, several months ago and is adjusting to life in this new time. It would almost be too much to believe if it wasn't for our condition, as he indicates to their pale visages. But I'm currently looking after the chap, and he seems to be doing a very good job of adapting to these modern nights.
She nods and says, well, we have to take care of each other, she says very quietly, as the door opens and they, I guess, exit into this grand room where Mr. Crown is waiting for them.
I could not agree more as the two of them step out.
the elevator does, in fact, go directly into a boardroom. They were instructed to press a uh, button that brings them right below the penthouse floor. And when they enter, they see Crown sitting at the head. He is dressed in very, very fine. Uh, it's store bought. It's not tailor made, but it is quite expensive looking. And of course, he nods and he gestures to two seats, one to his left, one to his right. Please sit.
Hmm. Mortimer will go for the seat to his left, since he is under the impression that the Lady of Clonmalcavian should have the Lord's ear, as it were, in this instance.
Megan nods at Mr. Crown and does slowly take her seat. She does look around a little bit as she sits, and she looks at Mr. Crown and says, "It's nice to meet you. Is it okay? Is it safe that we speak here?"
Yes, it is very safe. Ever since taking haven in this tower, I have taken a very special care for security. It's kind of my thing. Yes, we can speak freely here.
Megan seems very pleased to hear that, and she settles down a little bit more as she puts her bag down and puts her phone up on the table and waits for Morty to have a seat.
Mortimer takes his seat and says, "This is quite the building you have here, Mr. Crown."
I wish I could take credit for the construction of this tower, but I can't. It's only been about 6 months since I've actually taken. Well, maybe it's closer to a year. I'm not quite sure. When I came to the city, I actually did not stay in Venture Tower. I used to prefer more modest living.
Well, it is a very exquisite tower. I remember that this was the first place I went to when I came to the city. Met the prince in another section of this noble spire. It definitely left an interesting impression. But enough about that. I suppose we should get down to business, shall we?
Quite. And Crown will actually stand and he'll start to walk over to. He'll walk over. There is a bar over in the corner, and he'll go and he'll pour himself a highball of a bottle of Vitae. It has no particular markings on it except a single crown on the actual bottle. Can I offer you two something? Anything to drink?
I could go for a drink, although I'm not particular.
As they're talking, Megan has not been looking at either of them, but it almost is like she's been listening, just listening to everything. And she, at the offer, she kind of looks up and she says, "Oh, thank you, no. I appreciate it, though."
Of course. He'll pour a second highball of the vintage that he poured himself, and he'll offer it to Mortimer. Please, enjoy. This is my particular vintage that I prefer, and I have it bottled and brought to me every night. I don't enjoy hunting. Saves me the trouble.
Oh, you don't say. Well, in that case, he is going to try a trick that he hasn't done in a long time, and he's going to try using heightened senses to see if he can tell anything about the particular mortal that this Vitae belonged to. Would that be perception plus...
Heightened senses, I don't think it activates. You can just activate it, I believe.
It's right. Well, yeah, I know it's not a blood pool. I just wanted to know what the actual roll would be. I want to say perception alertness.
Sure, let's go with that.
Because I don't think there's any other particular role for that. And this decreases the difficulty by 1 since I have Auspex 1, so
Out of character, you boys and your dice.
it's just so fun. Ooh.
Ooh,
I
okay.
can't wait until this loads. Oh, oh my god, this is the first time I've gotten all successes on something. Maybe I should be like a professional, like, blood sampler.
You should talk with Mr. Stanhope.
I think I
Yes,
might.
you can actually tell a very youthful, a very clean taste to the vintage. A lot of the times when you taste someone like some Vitae, you sense like adrenaline or some kind of added type of flavor to it. But this is very, very young and very pure. With the amount of successes you got, Jesus, I'm gonna say you can tell that uh, age is between 14 and 17,
Interesting.
and it is female.
Hmm. Exquisite indeed, as he will take a sip, taste it, and say, very youthful. I like it. Excellent taste, Mr. Crown.
Thank you. So I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. The prince, in his wisdom, has sought fit to task us with finding out transportation, I believe. Can someone refresh my memory exactly what he asked us to do?
I believe, while he said transportation is our goal, our primary objective is to put into place a means by which we'd be able to monitor the comings and goings of all of the kindred in the city, as well as any other undesirables, such as the aforementioned cult that had taken up residence at the asylum, or any Sabbat scum that might be lurking around in the dark places of the city.
As Mortimer says Sabat, Megan frowns deeply and kind of twitches just a little bit. As he's speaking, she's reaching into her bag and kind of pulling out a flip notepad, and she starts jotting things down as he talks.
So, in that regards, I think that our spheres of influence that we should try and corner the market on, as it were, should be public transportation, probably the stoplights for the city, and any other instances where we'd be able to monitor places where there's a lot of traffic, I'd say, like perhaps bridges, intersections, main roads, stuff like that.
As she's writing, Megan is continuing to kind of just scribble stuff down. She doesn't look up, and she says, "How familiar are you gentlemen with the Patriot Act?" As she keeps writing.
I'm afraid I'm not too familiar. I do know that it was an act that was put into place after the events of 9/11, and it prohibited freedom in order to increase safety.
She's jotting things down, and she says, "Well, it also tends to allow for surveillance without pesky things like warrants, probable cause,
Oh
that kind
my.
of thing. Now, it is marathon season in New England, which means there are a lot of people, a lot of kind, running and running and running and running, trying to get to the finish line first. And it would be in everybody's best interest if we had protections in place to make sure that the areas were monitored."
That is an excellent idea, Miss Maitland.
And she's continuing to just kind of jot stuff down.
I was going to suggest perhaps we should install security cameras on some of the buses, because after all, it's very easy for people to become lost in the crowd of the bus stops and terminals. I don't suppose Mr. Crown would have rode the bus in a while. You seem too far a dignified man, but I'm sure you've found yourself sitting next to some particularly interesting individuals, Miss Maitland, before.
Crown will smile at the at the comment about um, Crown riding a bus, and he goes, and he's like, let's see, when was the last time I actually rode a bus? I believe it was. Let's see, what would be a? It would be an intelligence. What would be the roll?
Let me check. I'm I'm still pretty unfamiliar with the classic World of Darkness rules, but I'd say that it would be an intelligence plus. Empathy, as you're trying to remember something for yourself, since it's a personal experience of yours.
So if someone could roll me, uh, 4 dice.
All right, then I'll roll it. Here we go. Oh, we got 10, and I'd say the difficulty would be 5 or 6.
I would say 6 because
All right, then.
he's remember. So he did get a success, so he can remember one instance. It was back in June of 1932.
Ah. Well, I'm.
Yes, I was late for work, and I had to take the bus. Unfortunately, that was, of course, before I was embraced. So it was quite a while.
Well, no, please continue.
I remember it being quite unsettling then, and I'm sure it's only gotten worse.
Oh, I'd say so. However, that impersonalness of it, that everyone trying to usually stay within their own isolated bubble on the bus, makes it very, very good for people who are trying to hide. I would imagine that somebody who wants to get lost in a crowd can easily step onto a bus, and everyone would just try to ignore them except for the most invasive of people.
And as they're speaking, Megan is still kind of jotting things down, and almost absent-mindedly, she says, "It's also useful for those of us who still hunt." And she keeps jotting things down. But she'll kind of look up and say, "Well, Mr. Crown, I don't know if you have security interests. I don't know if they could contract with anyone to put these surveillance modes on buses or on street corners, but that's certainly a place we can start. You know, we need to get eyes everywhere. We need to make sure that the city is safe."
An idea comes to mind. What if we were to spin this as some sort of positive thing, like for buses, taxis, intersections, like, say, your business, Mr. Crowner. Actually, as he turns to Megan, what exactly do you do, Miss Maitland? I have never asked that question before.
She stops writing as she's addressed directly, and then she puts the pad and the pen down. And she says, "Well, I work for I basically freelance for a medical research company. You know, we process insurance claims." And she looks at him and says, "I do get a lot of information, some very personal information on kind in the city that way."
Oh, very interesting. I have a lot of respect for people in the medical field.
Apologies.
Well,
I was lost in the thought of times past. Sorry.
Oh no, it is
okay.
fine. It is fun, Miss Green. I was just discussing, because I did not realize that Miss Maitland was a respected member of the medical profession.
Well, I'm no nurse or doctor, but I know my way around the lingo, as it were.
Oh, nonsense. Anyone who works for the betterment of the health of the kind is part of the medical field, in my opinion.
That's true. Well, if they're not healthy, we're not healthy, and that's what it comes down to. I believe recent events would bear that out.
Yep. As of right now, we're sort of brainstorming up an idea. I think that our best way to go about installing these security cameras on, like, say, the buses or perhaps even the taxi cab system, although that would be a little bit more difficult to sell, would be to sort of have probably a company or maybe a subsidiary that you would own try to do um, a reinvigoration of public transportation. Spin it as like freshly painted buses, freshly installed tires, better braking system, better like sound system, and an added security camera. Just sort of put into like the jargon of all of the uh, other wonderful betterments that would be installed, so that way it would be seen as a more positive venue. Like, think of it as an
To
initiative in order to re what's the word I'm looking for?
vitalize?
Revitalize. Thank you, Miss Midland. To revitalize the New Sarum public transportation system, which has been ailing for years.
I'll see what I can get up. I know with my company Dragonstone Security, we could probably put something together.
Exactly.
The only thing is, the city needs a reason more than just simply revitalizing to replace all the buses.
Hmm.
And I'd hate to go as far as to cause an accident just
No,
to
no, no,
get
no.
a reason.
I think I
Although,
might have an idea. Oh, sorry, Mr. Krim. Please continue.
no, Crown seems to get a certain gleeful smile when he mentions giving people a reason to up their security. And then he kind of shakes it and he's like, sorry about that. Here's what I suggest. If one of you two can put together a presentation to the city about the lack of security and how the buses are not necessarily safe for the people of New Sarum, that it would be in the city's best interest to upgrade at least the security, which Dragonstone Security would be happy to oblige.
Megan is now again kind of scribbling stuff in her pad, and her eyes close for a moment, and she says, certainly there must have been accidents within the last month. Statistically, it's impossible if there weren't.
I think the answer may be right in front of us. Recent events have unfolded in the city that would definitely give the kind reason to be cautious. After all, the unfortunate shootout at the asylum and the recent rampage of one Black Rose killer, for instance, people cannot be necessarily feeling safe in their shoes, as it were. If we could spin this just right, we could take some of our own losses and use a net gain, potentially.
As she's writing, she's like, she says, Mortimer, you're the author here. Do you think you could put something together?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. As he actually, has he given Miss Crown or Megan Milton his card yet?
No. I would love your card.
Oh, I'm sorry. In that case, you will produce 2 cards and hand them over to you and said, if you guys ever are in need of somebody to come up with PR or any other particular aesthetic interests, feel free to give me a call as he hands you a card with, of course, the name Mortimer Fitzgerald, author on it, and the watermark stamp of what appears to be a spider on it.
Megan will take the card, and at some point later in the evening will text it so he has her number as well.
Right, excellent.
Crown will just look at the card and he won't necessarily grab it, but he'll let it sit in front of him and he'll nod as he produces his phone and enters in the number.
As
to make
he...
there.
Oh, yes. Sorry. He will then say that I would be more than happy to write up something in order to convince the good people of Town Hall about how certain precautions have not been taken to ensure that the city remains a relatively safe place to walk at night, as he smiles.
Mr. Fitzgerald, maybe would you consider applying for a job at Dragonstone? I'm sure we could use a man of your talents. Our unfortunate last PR representative did not deal with a certain, he'll smile a bit, a certain funding issue, and he had to be let go.
As actually that catches him off guard for a second, he's like, I would be happy to apply at Dragonstone. It has been a very long time since I worked commission for any company. I've been sort of a freelance author for so long.
I'll put it in the books.
Thank you for an opportunity.
And he'll type something in his phone, and he'll grab his highball, and he'll take another subtle drink. So, any more ideas?
Megan, kind of stops scribbling in her pad, and then she puts her pen down, and she says, I think this is a good place to start. We don't want to, throw the safe at the situation yet. We have to move subtly, because we know what happens when we don't move subtly.
True. Crown will press a button on a small pad on the table, and through one of the side doors, gentleman will come out. He's wearing a nice black suit, and it looks like he's kind of wincing, like his chest is a bit sore. He goes, "Yes, sir. How can I help?" It's like, please show these two to the cellar. Allow them to grab a bottle of Vitae, and please find some applications for Mr. Fitzgerald. Thank you, Daniel. And he'll nod, and he'll gesture you to the elevator.
Megan will rise. Was this gentleman a ghoul? Hopefully.
He's working towards it. You can tell that he doesn't show signs of ghouling, but yet he is in the employ of Mr. Crown.
Okay. Well, she wouldn't breach the masquerade by calling you Primogen if she didn't know who this guy was, but she would get up and nod and say, thank you for taking the time to meet with us, Mr. Crown.
Anytime. Please, feel free to drop by.
Mortimer would follow suit and bow as well and say, thank you. And again, thank you for this wonderful opportunity you presented me.
Of course.
So I guess they would follow this gentleman down to his Vitae cellar.
As you get into the elevator, he'll lead you down to the lobby, and then he will lead you to a small door that leads to a cellar area, and they look like wine bottles. He has a special key that he unlocks the door, and he'll go down a stairway, and there are just all sorts of bottles, and they have it's like summer jog, different brands, and they do happen to say Stanhope Vintage. So
Got it. So it's Stanhope stuff.
Yeah, it's been true. It's Stanhope.
All right. Very cool. So I guess Megan would, although she's kind of looking around, taking everything in. She would accept the bottle and then put it in her. Good thing she brought her messenger bag with her, and wait for Mortimer to finish up his business before he says goodbye.
He would take his own Vitae bottle, although he would need some sort of bag or maybe gift basket in order to walk out with it. But I'm sure there's plenty of those around, so we won't.
As you grab the bottle, he'll produce a small bag that you can take with you.
Excellent. The only thing left is he would wait for, was it George? To retrieve
Daniel.
the application?
Daniel.
Daniel. He would wait for Daniel to retrieve the application.
Um, as you exit the cellar, he'll go to the front desk and he'll go through some files and he'll produce you some applications.
As he will smile politely and sort of say to himself, "Man, it's been a while since I filled out one of these."
While this exchange was occurring, and he was getting the bottle, he was getting the papers, her phone started to buzz, and she picks it up, and she gets this very, very grave look of concern as she's kind of typing into her phone, and she's only kind of half listening to Morty, but she does hear what he says, and she says, "Well, we all have to earn a living, at least at this point." And she's tapping, and she says, I'm so sorry, Morty. I have something I have to fix."
As he looks at her and then sees her look of concern and says, "Is there something wrong?"
She would look at him and smile, which is, again, not really usual for her, and she says, "Isn't there always?"
He'll sort of have a grim smile himself and says, "Well, if you need anything, don't hesitate to call. You got my number."
She'll nod, and she'll gather her things together, and she'll just kind of lightly touch him on the shoulder, and she'll say, "We'll speak again soon." And she would quickly, follow her way up and make her way out of the building, out into the night.
All right. Mortimer will quickly follow suit and begin heading off with a lot to think about and a lot to plan. But overall, very satisfied with the progress their coterie has came up with so far.
And as the two exit the tower into the night, Crown sits in his chair, smiling, and he'll reach for his highball and he'll take his last sip and, well, it's a start. And there we will end our scene.